Good afternoon, and welcome to today's edition of the Coal Scene. Today's program, we are going to devote towards showing the highlights of a recent coal forum meeting that we had here in Charleston. The Energy Forum featured the latest round of requirements imposed on the coal mining industry, actually the burning of coal by the Environmental Protection Agency. We understand that these rules are so stringent that not only does it affect and have a serious implication for state coal miners, but also for power plant workers across the country. On the panel, we had UMW International President Cecil Roberts. He was joined with internationally known energy and air expert Gene Triscoe, who's an economist and lawyer from the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia. We had Miss Kelly Goes join Cecil Roberts and Gene Triscoe, and of course Kelly was our former Secretary of Commerce. She now heads up Senator Manchin's Charleston office. And joining those individuals, we had Bill Rainey, President of the West Virginia Coal Association, and Mike Carey, who serves as President of the Ohio Coal Association. Again, the effects of these requirements knows no bounds and affects the state of Ohio as well as West Virginia, and also extends into the other Appalachian states as it relates to mining. And of course, it cuts across a number of other states as it relates to the impact that these rules will have on coal-fired power generators. We also had Jeff Herhold, who provided some perspective in a more general nature on state energy affairs, and also warned that these rules would effectively cut down on the amount of coal that's burned here in the state. These are very serious rules, and they are really part of a number of other EPA proposals that collectively serve to really threaten eastern coal production and in particular West Virginia production. We had an excellent panel of experts convened for this discussion on EPA's air quality rules, and we thought we'd share that with you here this afternoon. Let's watch. Good morning. Welcome to today's Coal Forum. I'm Chris Hamilton with the Coal Association, for those of you that I've not had the pleasure of meeting. And on behalf of the Coal Forum and my counterpart and co-chair, Fred Tucker, over here in the front of the room in these Mountaineer Gold, we'd like to welcome everyone to today's program. Today's forum will feature a discussion of energy generally and with a particular concentration on EPA's regulatory agenda as it relates to the new round of clean air initiatives. Over the years, I'm sure you're aware, the Coal Forum's held a number of educational briefings on a wide variety of timely and pertinent topics that impacts the industry. As we know, mining throughout northern and central App has clearly been under attack over the past several years, and the challenges before us today are without question becoming more and more serious. And although the industry has always had its share of challenges, never before have they been quite as serious or threatening. And we have quite a panel assembled here today. On my far right, Bill Rainey, President of the West Virginia Coal Association, and my superior. It's always good politics to put your boss on any program that you host. Seated next to him and my right, Cecil Roberts, President of the United Mine Workers. To my immediate left, Kelly Goes on behalf of Senator Manchin. Next to Kelly, Jeff Herhold, who oversees and runs the West Virginia Division of Energy here in the state. Next to him, international energy and air expert Gene Trisco comes from the Eastern Panhandle. It's a pleasure to introduce to you Ms. Kelly Goes with Senator Manchin.
Good morning. On behalf of Senator Manchin, thank you so much for inviting us to speak to this group today. The Senator regrets very much that he cannot be here. We have scheduled him in other locations, but I don't think anybody in this room doubts how important he thinks the coal industry is. So I want to thank Chris and Fred very much for inviting me, and a special welcome from the Senator to you, Cecil Roberts, for coming to our state and for being a part of this. I do think it's fair, because I'm a West Virginian, to identify my background for you all. So I'm from Braxton County, and I'm a coal operator's daughter. So the industry is very important to me. Coal put a roof over my head. It put me through college. It got me through law school, and it gave me the values and the work ethic that have gotten me where I am in life. So I have a lot of respect for the men and women in the industry. I have a lot of respect for the industry. And we've all taken the time to understand our place in the world, and now it's time to share that place with the rest of the world. I think the Senator would observe, and has observed on multiple occasions, there is a lack of education in this country as to the importance of the coal industry. And stop me if you've heard this before from him, but the coal that we mined in our little state went to the steel mills and made the steel that made the guns and made the ships that made this country strong and free, and went to the electricity generating plants that have powered the manufacturing industry in this country. And you need only look at the manufacturing industry in this country and then compare that with where coal-fired power plants are to know the importance that this rock has had in shaping the success in our country and in shaping the future of our country. This is not just rhetoric. These are facts, and you don't have to like them, but facts are impartial. They're not here to annoy you. They're here, they have to be understood, and they have to be acted upon. And the key to this is understanding how to communicate that information to folks who would make policy based on a dislike of an industry without understanding the ramifications that this blanket dislike has without education. So one of the Senator's top priorities is a national energy policy. You have to have one. You have to have a 21st century energy policy that assesses energy in this country, where we get it, and how we use it. Now, everybody in this room understands that 50% of our energy comes from coal, or electricity. And everybody understands in this room that perhaps the highest and best use of coal isn't to burn it to create electricity by turning generators. It may be the highest and best use of coal is to gasify it and turn it into something else, like liquid fuel. But you can do that with coal. Once you gasify it, you can take any catalyst that's been invented in the petroleum industry for years as a byproduct of refining, and you can make that carbon chain sing if you want to, probably in 4-part harmony. But the point is that coal is integral to our future as a country, and it has to be part of a national energy policy, and we have to assess, if you want to take coal out of the mix, even if it is to make liquid fuels, where are you going to find the energy to power the power plants to keep electricity going? You cannot separate this. And you cannot separate coal from the international, global economy. You can't separate coal from why this country fights certain wars. And you can't separate coal from the cost of those wars, and you can't separate the coal from what the cost of those wars have done to the economy. And the Senator is a big picture guy. It makes him pretty easy to work for, if you want to know the truth, because he understands all this, and he understands the importance of what he's taking on. And without having this discussion at a high level, including folks from all industries, but particularly folks from the coal industry, with the knowledge and the background that we have, you're not going to get a comprehensive energy policy that solves the problem. And that's the key in Washington right now. Let's solve the problem. The Senator will tell you, and I'm very proud of him when he says this, he doesn't see the problems of this country as red problems or blue problems. He sees them as red, white, and blue problems, and the solutions have to be red, white, and blue. key to forming a national energy policy is to make sure the regulatory agencies that govern energy understand what that policy is. And if the policy includes coal, then you have to be able to mine it. You have to be able to get the permits to mine it. You have to have regulatory agencies that can do their job, because I have yet to meet a West Virginian that wants to drink dirty water or breathe dirty air. So I don't think the issue is that we want to allow folks to come to our state and pollute. We all live here, and we're proud of where we live. I'm raising my children here. I'm proud of that. The issue is making sure the regulatory agency works with the industry, uses science, and uses facts, and uses technology to achieve the results that we all want. We all want clean, low-cost power, and we all want air and water that we can use.
The guys, all these guys today are going to talk about EPA's air attack that Chris mentioned and the terrifically negative impact that EPA's unrealistic rules, policies, and timetables are having on our power plants here in West Virginia as well as power plants throughout the country. They're going to make everyone understand and help everyone understand the debilitating implications that EPA's decisions are having on our people and our way of life and our people's jobs and the people of West Virginia's pocketbooks. These negative impacts, they'd be bad on their own, but they'd be bad at any time, but they really seem ridiculous today when this country's economy is absolutely in shambles. Everybody that's got a job wants to keep it. Everybody that doesn't have a job is hunting for one. But Washington's doing everything possible, it seems, to dismantle that economy further, and particularly our state's economy, and we're one of only 5 states that have enough money to pay their bills. So you would think that they would look to West Virginia for some guidance as to how is that happening. And I don't understand it. It's absolutely puzzling to me when other countries, such as Germany, are turning back to coal. And you got China and India that are expanding their economies today based on coal-fired electricity every day. And we in this country have more coal than any of those countries, and we have more coal than any country in this world. So I don't understand it. No one can explain to me why it is that EPA is behaving the way they are. So we got to take action with Congress, with West Virginians everywhere, to do everything possible to get H.R. 2018. That was introduced by Congressman Rahal, and it was advanced by Congresswoman Capito and Congressman McKinley. And what it does is it puts some controls on EPA, but more importantly, it's a states' rights bill. It returns the Clean Water Act authorities to the states where Congress originally put it years ago. We got to protect our people from the people who want to weaken this economy and weaken this country. So I know that all of us can stay together to stop EPA from victimizing our people, jeopardizing our standard of living, and they simply need to let our people work. Our people want to work. They need to do everything they can to encourage them to work.
From 2008 to 2010, West Virginia coal production dropped 18%, from roughly 160 million tons to 140 million tons. These were recessionary reductions. The overall economy, as we recall, was ailing. In the same time, West Virginia electric production decreased 12% from 2008 to 2010. We're seeing new investments in West Virginia that is going to continue the demand for West Virginia coal, investments that we hope are models in other states. One of the, a new power plant that's coming online in Monongalia County, the Longview Power Plant, 700 megawatts, advanced supercritical power plant. Advanced supercritical means the coal is burned at a higher pressure, higher temperature. You get more energy out of the coal. This will be, and again, they're starting it up now. We could say it is one of the cleanest coal plants in the country. This should be, hopefully, will be a model for future coal-related development in West Virginia.
The first priority is to stop the EPA Clean Air Act regulations. The message must be that the EPA's flood of new regulations, which we're calling and everybody is calling the train wreck, must be stopped. The transport rule, the utility MAC proposals are particularly harmful, will not only increase the prices of the homeowners, but the manufacturing base that we're trying to prop up in this country. So I would urge you to make sure that your members of Congress support H.R. 2584. The EPA has completely distorted the facts as it relates to their comprehensive review of the train wreck language or the train wreck proposals. The EPA had claimed, this is Lisa Jackson's group, had claimed that they had consulted with FERC and that they had received assistance from them while they were doing the modeling efforts for the electric reliability. FERC disputed the EPA claims. Before these regulations take effect, EPA must show proof of formal interagency consultations and that are critical of the understanding of the process. Basically what this means, and I won't go into too much, but what this means is the EPA under testimony said, oh yeah, we talked with FERC, we know our modeling's right, but then it came out after Lisa Murkowski and members of Congress, Upton being one of them, said, wait a minute, did you or did you not consult with FERC? And right now, it looks as though they weren't being truthful. So, that's the good news, right? Folks, we got a lot of work ahead of us, and I don't care what side of the aisle politically you're on. The fact of the matter remains that we have a whole host of really bad stuff coming down the pike. And if you think you're having a tough time getting that permit out of the ground, if you can get it out of the ground, they're going to make sure you don't have a market to send it to. And then they're going to try to put policies together so that even if there was a market in a foreign country, you're not going to be able to send it there because you're not going to be competitive with the other countries. This is a fact. This is undisputed.
What I'm here to talk about today is to drill down into some of the nitty-gritty of EPA's proposed MAC regulations affecting electric utilities. Now, the single most damaging aspect of this rule is the time for compliance that is imposed under Section 112 of the Clean Air Act. That is 36 months. EPA is under a consent decree that it negotiated with the environmental community to issue this rule by November of this year. If it does so, that rule's effective date after publication in the Federal Register would be approximately January 2015. That's 36 months to install hundreds of retrofit control devices on the approximate 1,100 gigawatts of coal capacity in this country. The number two problem with the rule is that as it's currently proposed, it would not be possible to design, construct, and permit a coal plant, a new coal plant in the United States of America. And let me explain why. This is what's known as the Franken-Plant problem. EPA has determined individual hazardous emission standards for mercury, for PM, for acid gases, looking at the best performing unit in its sample of coal plants all around the country. The particulate matter limit comes from a plant up in New York, Dunkirk plant, burns Powder River Basin coal, does not have a scrubber, and has a fabric filter. This is a unit that could not be permitted under the Clean Air Act today. It's clean as a whistle for PM because it doesn't have a scrubber. And yet EPA picked a plant that is clearly unrepresentative of the kinds of technologies that would need to be employed at a coal plant built today. The mercury limit is based upon a Colorado 100 megawatt unit, an atmospheric fluid bed unit, burning some of the lowest mercury coal in the world. That's Colorado bituminous. This coal, when I ran the EPA database, turned out to be the 9th lowest mercury coal in the United States. The unit does not meet best available control technology standards. It lacks a scrubber. It does not have an SCR. It could not be permitted under the Clean Air Act today, and yet EPA has used its mercury emission rate as the basis for all new coal mercury emission standards. The acid gas standard comes from Logan Plant, located in the Garden State of New Jersey. Now, this happens to be a plant that probably could be permitted today, and it also burns Pittsburgh seam coal. But the point is that any plant that is proposed for construction today would have to meet all of these individual standards. That means you'd have to have a plant that does have a scrubber and that doesn't have a scrubber, that does have an atmospheric fluidized bed but doesn't have an atmospheric fluidized bed, and that burns a coal called Powder River, Colorado, Pittsburgh seam coal. You can't get there from here, and EPA knows it.
I think I want to try to put a little bit of a human element on this, if I might, because I think people have done a very good job of explaining what this rule does, some of the concerns we all have. There's literally been thousands of new coal miners hired. We estimate that we have seen 3,000 new coal miners go to work under the UMWA contract in the last 5 years. That's a lot of folks. And these people are in their 20s. They're just starting their families. They're looking to buy a home. They're looking to have children. They're looking for a place to put down roots, and they're looking to be able to be employed for the next 30 years. And I happen to believe that this industry provides a good paying job, and we can make those jobs safe, and we're working at that every single day. I see people everywhere who have a job but have had to give up things to keep that job. And I've also run into people who are underemployed. Now, what does that mean? That would mean someone who might have been a steel worker 3 years ago is not a steel worker anymore, and they're working somewhere 2 jobs and not making as much money as they made 3 years ago. And they don't have health care and they don't have pensions. But I tell people, well, I know where there's an industry where we just got a pay raise. We just negotiated a contract that was ratified by 70% of the membership in the United States, and they got an immediate $1 per hour raise, and they're going to get another $1 in January. That's $2 in 6 months. If you're interested, that's an 8% raise in 6 months. 8%. And over the life of the contract, they're going to get a 25% overall rate. I can tell you, I don't know where there's another industry that can say that. I don't know where there's another industry that can say we've given our workers a 25% promise here. Now, another thing, everywhere I go, people either don't have health care. By the way, in the last few years, we've climbed down to about 51 million people without any health care. I mean, zero health care. Now, what happens to our society when we have 51 million people out there without health care? That becomes a serious problem for the economy of the United States overall. I know in the UMWA, we've got the best health care in the world, and we like it, and we're going to keep it, and we fight for it. And it's not just the coal miners who are working that have that. I want to tell you something. There are 96,000 retirees from the UMWA, Fred, 96,000, and their dependents. They all have 100% health care. There's about 10 to 15 to 20% of them that don't because they didn't work long enough to get it, but the vast majority of those people who are retired have health care. Over the life of this new agreement we just negotiated, there will be $3.5 billion paid out from that fund sent to the coal fields of the United States of America over the next 5.5 years. $3.5 billion in pension benefits. In health care benefits, is going to far exceed that. So what does that mean? Well, if you work in a clinic, a hospital, a doctor's office, there's a good chance that coal miners' health care is supporting that facility. That's not just true in West Virginia. That's true in many states of the Union, about 20, 21 states, where people who used to work in this industry have retired and are still getting good benefits. And that goes into the economy. So it's not just the people who have a job now producing coal. It's people who retired from this industry. The industry and the union have negotiated benefits that go on for life. So $3.5 billion over the next 5.5 years in pension benefits, more than that in health care benefits, and it's all coming back to create jobs in the areas where that money comes to. I think the conversation ought to be, how do we keep people working, and how do we put people to work, and how do we pay them excellent wages with excellent benefits? We need more taxpayers in the United States, more than anything else that we can talk about. We should be in the position of constructing new coal-fired facilities using state-of-the-art technology to keep the atmosphere as clean as possible. I'm telling you, though, it's almost impossible to do that. The truth is that we stand for the proposition that coal miners are the most precious resource that we have, and that coal is a commodity that we ought to take advantage of, and we cannot afford to lose any more American jobs. We ought to be about the business of creating more American jobs with good paying wages, good paying health care, and a pension upon retirement, and that's what this industry does. So on respect to what it means to our overall economy, that's what I think this rule actually means, whether we're going to go forward with hope here or backward by fear. And I choose to go forward by hope. Thank you.
Welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed our presentation and coal form meeting. Add this to the growing list of those issues advanced by EPA that's impacting coal mining and coal consumption within our area. These are real threats. These are very dramatic, very serious threats that impact our short and long-term viability to be able to compete within the world markets in which we do. Despite all the gloom and doom, we also have hope. We think that there's a tremendous opportunity before us for West Virginia to emerge as the Saudi Arabia of the United States and truly become our nation's center for commerce and energy. This must be done with a lot of common sense and foresight. And we are very optimistic that we can still get to that point where we all want this industry to elevate. We are keeping you informed on the Library Television Network. Thanks for joining us here today for this episode of the Coal Scene. Thank you.